All right, let's get right into it. For decades, the US and Iran have been locked in one of the most complicated and, well, tense standoffs on the entire planet. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the actual geopolitical blueprint of their long-running conflict.
And that quote really sets the stage perfectly. We're not talking about a series of random events here. No, this is all about a carefully constructed architecture of power, of pressure, and of strategy. It's a design, and both sides are master architects.
You see, for the longest time, this whole thing has been what people call a shadow war. It's like this giant global chess match played through other countries. The main weapons? Crippling economic sanctions and cyber attacks that happen far, far away from the public eye. That was the old blueprint.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That's all changing, right now. The blueprint is being redrawn as we speak. Those subtle moves are becoming way more obvious, the proxy fights are getting more direct, and the entire structure of this conflict is being tested right out in the open.
So, that brings us to the new battlefield. We're beyond just covert ops now. What we're seeing is a direct clash of national strategies, a real high-stakes showdown between two completely opposite philosophies: endurance versus escalation. So on one side of the board, you have Iran's network. And you gotta understand, this isn't just Tehran versus Washington. Iran projects its power through what it calls the axis of resistance. This is a whole network of powerful allied militias and groups across the Middle East. They aren't just allies, they are strategic pieces on the board that let Iran wage war by proxy all over the region.
Now, how does the US counter this? Well, the official doctrine is something called integrated deterrence. The whole idea is to use every tool in the toolbox: diplomacy, economic pressure, information, and of course, the military. Not just to win a war, but to stop one from ever starting by making the price of aggression just way too high. Iran, on the other hand, plays a totally different game. They call it forward defense. It's pretty clever, actually. They use that proxy network to fight their battles far, far away from their own soil. The goal? To bog down their enemies, to stretch their supply lines and resources totally thin, and just make any direct attack on Iran itself seem like a terrible, costly idea. And when you put them side by side like this, you really see the core tension, don't you? The US wants to starve the engine with what it calls maximum pressure from sanctions. That's a strategy of endurance. Iran wants to overextend resources using actual physical or kinetic proxy attacks, a strategy of calculated escalation. It's economic pain versus physical pain.
So, what's this all really about? What's the foundation of this whole fight? Well, this entire massive, complex conflict really rests on three fundamental pillars. Three non-negotiable issues that are so critical, they define the whole geopolitical structure. Let's break them down. First, we're talking about the nuclear question, which could literally redraw the map of global power. Then there's the battle for control over the world's most vital shipping lane. And finally, there's this new invisible battlefield that's being fought with artificial intelligence. Any one of these could be the spark that ignites a much, much bigger fire.
Okay, pillar number one, the big one, the nuclear program. Reports suggest Tehran is closer than it has ever been to producing weapons-grade uranium. And for the US and its allies, nuclear Iran is the ultimate red line. It's a development that would just fundamentally change the security equation for the entire planet.
Now, for our second pillar, I just want you to focus on this one number, 20%. Just hold that in your head for a second. 20% of what, you ask?
Well, that 20% is the amount of the entire world's oil supply that has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. It's an incredibly narrow waterway that Iran can essentially control. This isn't just a regional issue. One wrong move here, one miscalculation, and you could see the global energy grid basically collapse overnight. And that brings us to the third pillar, the invisible battlefield. We're talking about incredibly sophisticated cyber attacks and more, things like AI-guided drone swarms and targeting systems. This is a brand new frontier where battles can be won or lost with algorithms and code, long before a single soldier sets foot on the ground.
So you've got these three pillars, and they are all under constant, immense pressure. It's creating this inevitable stress test on the entire system. And, that really brings us to the biggest question of all. Where is this all heading? What's the end game here? I mean, this is the question, right? With all these red lines being drawn, all these choke points, are these two powers just on an unavoidable collision course that ends in a direct, all-out war? Well, the answer is a lot more complicated than you might think.
The answer, or at least a big part of it, lies in this concept called gray zone conflict.
Think of it as the space between declared peace and declared war. It's where you can launch aggressive, harmful actions like those proxy attacks or cyber strikes, but they're all carefully designed to stay just below the threshold that would trigger a full-blown military response.
And here is the real key to understanding all of this. Both sides, Washington and Tehran, have become absolute masters of operating in this gray zone. They are constantly poking and prodding, testing each other, always pushing the boundary of what's acceptable. But crucially, they're both trying to avoid the catastrophic cost of completely breaking the system.
But that leaves us with a final and pretty sobering thought. A geopolitical structure, well, it's just like a physical one. It can only take so much stress. And the real question isn't just about whether someone wants to break the system, it's whether the constant grinding pressure of this gray zone war will eventually cause the whole thing to crack all on its own.